For this presentation, we will be discussing a Northern Electric triple slot payphone. This payphone was made in the early 1960s. There's two things unique about it, at least to me, is the coin gauge is much larger than what you find on your normal automatic electric or Western electric, as well as some of the Northern Electric phones. So I'm not sure what the reason was for this style of coin gauge, if it was used in a more vandal resistant area. If anybody knows, I would appreciate leaving a message in the comments. This, of course, is a post-pay payphone, and I'll later on show the internals of the phone. And I would like to give a special thanks to Stan for sending me the schematic for this phone. This phone is wired much different than the 233 because it has components inside to make it post-pay, but it does use a standard 635 type network bell assembly. And the phone has on it, this particular one had been refurbished during its lifetime, and someone had put an ITT handset on it. Anyway, the chrome on this phone is in really great shape for its age. This phone must have been used inside of a building because it's not pitted, rusted, or beat up. A lot of your chrome triple slots were in pretty sad shape, especially if they were outside on any of the coastal areas or areas with a lot of salt. The phone will work on a standard central office line that has the ability to reverse the polarity upon an answered call. This phone does not require special equipment in the central office to make it work. For being 2020, if those of you who have Asterisk systems and ATAs that has the ability to reverse the polarity, there's a couple of things to keep in mind. The only time the polarity of the phone line was reversed to the phone is if it was a local call and an answered local call. When dialing the operator, that was not technically an answered call, so the line polarity did not change. And if you made a 1+ call, if the central office allowed the call to go through, the toll office, because of a class mark in the ANI, would direct the call to an operator, because you would have to have an operator set up the call to the person you're calling, and then once that person answered, they would tell you how much coin to deposit. Later in this video, I connected my monitor speaker to the phone line and deposited nickels, dimes, and quarters, and with the back end open so you could maybe see them going through the coin mech. This happened so quickly that it would require a camera with time lapse and somebody who knew how to record that kind of stuff and edit the time lapse, and I do not have that ability. So the phone is unique, as in it's a Northern Electric post-pay. There's not that many of them that I'm aware of in the United States. Automatic electric phones was the phone of choice by most independent telephone companies, and that was at least on the West Coast where I was at. AE phones were everywhere. Then later on they went to Centurion phones in some of the areas, and they could be prepay or postpay or semi-prepay, depending on the central office they're connected to. They also had automatic electric 120 style single slot phones that could be set up for the 3 different types of calls. With the upper housing removed off the phone, you can see that the hopper has a different type of a mechanism attached to the front of it. Instead of having a single winding relay or a twin winding relay depending on the base, this has a micro switch and a flap that's inside of the hopper. There are reed switches and a couple of electronic components inside of this network arrangement, and this is what controls the transmitter inside of the telephone. So when the phone is off hook and you've dialed a number that is not answered, you will have transmitter battery and you can talk on the phone. So if you dial 0, you can talk to an operator because the operator does not reverse polarity to the phone. Or you could dial a 1+ call, and if the switching office that you connected to allowed 1+ calls from payphones, when they got the automatic number identification, the toll office would then switch the call to a operator, generally a cordboard operator, and very late in the game a TSPS operator. And they would then set up the call and tell you how much money to deposit into the phone once the party you called answered. So I would demonstrate making a call to my time of day, and it will not be an answered call, and it will not require a deposit to complete the call. My time of day number does not reverse battery on local calls.
Especially during daily discount periods. The time is 5:07. Addresses and phone numbers of SNAP offices are on page 4 of your phone book. The time is 5:07.
And you can tell that the line is still negative voltage, and it's at 20 volts approximately, 19.2. So I will hang up and I will go off hook and I will dial a number that I will answer. In my system, I can dial the office code of 377 and then 5555, or in this case, I can dial it as a 4-digit call. Now, watch the voltage on the meter. The minus will go away when I answer this. All right, so right now you're hearing me talk on the phone. I answered, but the transmitter on the payphone is dead. So I would deposit a coin in the phone, and now you can hear me talking on the payphone. So we have a answered local call. The call is like talking on 2 regular phones. As long as you're on the call, it'll just stay up for whatever the duration that you choose. There was some exchanges that had a timer that would cut off local calls, but that was in the 40s and the 50s, and I don't know how widespread that was used. Here in the West Coast, I do not know of any exchanges that had that feature on local calls. So I will go on hook and hang up, of course. Go off hook and I'll dial a busy number. And of course, I can talk on the payphone, and the number I dialed will be busy, but I'll have to dial the whole office code. I still have transmitter battery because the call was obviously not answered. If you dialed 0, you can talk to the operator. If you dialed a 1+ number, if that was allowed, then you could still talk to the operator when the toll office switched the call to the operator. I will demonstrate what's happening inside of the upper housing in a moment, so I have to reposition a bunch of stuff to do that. This particular phone has a 635 type network, which is common for the 233 Western phones, Northern phones. Of course, using an automatic electric phone, they had their own bell boxes and subsets. But this is primarily talking about a Northern Electric prepaid phone. The prepaid Northern phones of the single slot, I've only seen 2 of them in my lifetime, so I'm not sure where they were used. Most of your independent telephone companies used automatic electric, and the postpaid was very popular because it did not require any switching equipment to make it work, any additional switching equipment. So if you had a small Stromberg XY office or a tiny AE step office, you would just simply put these postpaid phones in the field and ta-da, they're working. If you wanted to have dial tone first or coin first, then that required some control equipment, which was very complex and in most cases very expensive. So I will show the back of the upper housing and how that works next. We have in the upper housing of the triple slot phone the coin separator. So you have a coin gauge where you deposit your nickel, dime, and quarter, and you have 3 slots in the top, and I'm not sure if you can see that or not, where the nickels, dimes, and quarters are sent into the respective chambers. It's in the coin mech. So we have a relay here, and this was set up for a 10-cent operation, so that this required 10 cents to make a call. If you put in a nickel, it would trap the first nickel, and then when you place the second nickel in, it would operate the mechanism in here and drop the coins through. The upper housing also has a transmitter so that it's connected to the phone line so that the operator can hear the coins going through, and you'll have a single ding for a nickel, a double ding for a dime, and then a gong or a boing tone spring for the quarter. They also had here a diode for reverse polarity to cut off the microphone, I believe, when it was not necessarily needed. So I have temporarily connected my test cords to the upper housing of the phone. So I will tip this forward and deposit a nickel, dime, and a quarter, and I'm not sure how well you're going to be able to see it going through the mechanism, but I will try to get the best that we can. This is happening very, very quickly, so I would do it multiple times, so if you watch closely you may see a coin sliding through. The coins will come out the bottom right here, and I have a piece of carpet on my workbench, so hopefully I can catch the coin before it hits the floor. So I'm going to reposition the camera and try to get a better light on the inside of this phone. Like that nickel. So with the speaker right next to the camera's microphone, you did hear louder what was on the line versus what was coming from the internals of the phone. This is how it used to work in the old network. If you listen to any of the Evan doorbell recordings, he made a lot of calls from single slot phones and triple slot phones. Most of the triple slot phones that he recorded from were automatic electric.